Hello everyone, my name is Alice and welcome back to NetLab. Today we're going to be focusing on the NetLab CompTIA 8 Plus Lab 12, Troubleshooting Tools in Windows. To get started, you're going to want to make sure that you have your document open and that you have logged in to NetLab. To do that, click on this link, log in, select New Lab Reservation, Schedule Lab for myself, select the class that you are taking this for, go to NDG 8 Plus V4, and scroll down to Lab 12. Click on it. Now, if you want to take the lab right away, you must go just below the red line and click. However, if you want to schedule the lab for later, all you need to do is click anywhere that fits the time that you want to take it at. In this case, because I want to do it now, I'll just click just below the red line. Because this is an instructional lab, I'm going to give myself a little extra time. Remember that you can only give yourself more or less time in intervals of 30 minutes. If you're worried that you might run out of time, try to select 30 minutes more than you think you need. Otherwise, while you're in the lab, you can select Give me more time. Now click Submit. Now, if you want to take the lab right away, and you've scheduled it as such, you should be able to see a green box called Enter Lab. If you schedule it for later, you won't see it. It will only show up when your time has officially started. So, if you don't see it yet, wait until your time is started, and then check again. But since we're already here, we can just click Enter Lab. Now that we're here, we can scroll down and begin. In this lab, we're going to be focusing on using built-in troubleshooting tools in Windows. There are many ways to troubleshoot a malfunctioning computer, however, there are commonly used methodologies or processes that you can use to streamline it. In this case, this is a common example. We start by identifying the specific problem, that is through gathering information and identifying the specific symptoms. This often involves talking with the person who owns the computer to gather more information about their usage. Then, establish a theory. Use Occam's razor. The simplest solution is most likely the correct one. So start with the simplest possible solution, but keep in mind that oftentimes the simplest solution might not be the answer. Using the information that you've gathered in Step 1, list all of the probable causes starting with the easiest and least difficult to test. In the case of a display issue, you wouldn't want to try and diagnose the video card first. Instead, you'd want to check to see if the video cable is plugged into the monitor. Then, test your theory. If the theory turns out to not work, go back to Step 1 and see what other angles you can consider. Once you have found a theory that seems to adequately explain the cause and effect of the issue, move on to Step 4, creating an action plan. First, you must build the plan and figure out how to execute it with the least impact to the consumer. For example, if the customer has a dead hard drive, you want to be able to make sure that you can install a new drive and recover as much data as possible from the dead one. Identify any potential problems you can think of for what might go wrong, and make sure that you have a backup plan for if that comes to pass. Once you have done that, implement the solution. Once the solution is implemented, make sure that the system actually works. If possible, you want to aim for the system working just as well, if not better, than it did before you came. Make sure that the customer confirms that you have fixed it. Just because you think something has worked doesn't mean that they might not find issue with it. Also, once the fix is confirmed, make sure to implement any preventative measures you can. So, for example, update their antivirus and turn on automatic updates if you can. At the end of it all, document what happened. First, document the problem as thoroughly as possible. Then write down the theory that turned out to be correct. Write down what your action plan was, and if the implementation worked. Make sure to include any preventative measures that you have implemented so that if something else goes wrong in the future and another agent has to try and diagnose it, they'll have your notes to work off of. Now, scroll down. As usual, all of the systems use the username sysadmin. To begin, we want to enter the Windows 7 machine. So, click on the Windows 7 icon. Make sure to click inside the window a couple times to make sure that the virtual machine has captured your mouse pointer. Otherwise, clicking won't do anything. Now, click on sysadmin and enter in the password training with a capital T, the second I replaced by a 1, and a $sign after the G. Now that we're in, click on the Start button and type in Action Center. Keep in mind that Action Center is Windows 7 and Windows 8 specific. You won't find it in Windows 10. Once we're in, scroll down to see what we must do next. In this case, we want to click on the Troubleshooting icon. If you don't see it here, scroll down. Click on Troubleshooting, and click View All. We want to launch the Aero troubleshooter. Aero is the official Microsoft term for the graphical interface that causes this glassy look on the windows. A lot of troubleshooters will need you to run them as administrator, so right-click and select Run as Administrator. Then, hit Next. Now this arrived at a solution very quickly, but for some troubleshooters it might take several minutes. In this case, you might notice that it doesn't actually have a fix that it can automatically implement. However, it does have a suggested solution, just not one that it can implement itself. It is suggesting that you update the driver for your graphics card, because it believes that the graphics card you have installed is compatible with Windows Aero. You just have to make sure that the driver that it is supplied with actually enables it to implement Aero effects. Now, hit Next. Here it checks for additional problems. It notes that it can't fix the problem that it discovered, so it's listed here as not fixed. To learn more, select View Detailed Information. Not only does this tell you about the issue that it did find, but it also tells you about other issues that it checked for but didn't find. In this case, mirror drivers, Windows support, and Windows Experience Index. When finished, simply hit Next, and then Close. Now we can close the window. Now we'll focus on Task Manager. You might already know how to use Task Manager, but you'll probably find yourself using it a lot more in an IT job. So, go to the taskbar, right-click, and select Start Task Manager. What you see should be similar. In this case, it's already on the Processes tab, but you might start at the Applications tab. If so, just click on Processes. The guide wants us to create a dump file of explorer.exe. You can think of a dump file as a snapshot of how an app is behaving at the time that the file was dumped. So this could include running processes, data that it contains, and any modules that it has loaded. Now we go to explorer.exe, right-click, and select Create Dump File. This will most likely take a moment, but in this case it didn't. On larger processes, it might take several minutes. It also tells us exactly where the file is located. Now we want to check our system's reliability. To do so, go to the Start menu, type in Reliability, and select View Reliability History. It will display information as a graph. It should be selected for the current day, which in this case it is. Now it says here that we should be seeing a problem as an application failure in Notepad. However, since this is dated 7/16/2018, and our current date is 6/3/2025, it's not going to be shown. Instead, we can try and create problems. Let's continue on. Click back on the Start menu, and type in Event Viewer. Now, hit Enter. The Event Viewer shows both an overview and detailed information about any errors or notices that the computer has received during its uptime. For now, we can close every panel except Summary of Administrative Events by just clicking on the arrow. Let's examine each type of event that we might have encountered. So, error. It appears that we have 4. Warning. It appears we have 1. Information. We certainly have a lot. And audit success. We can select any specific event. In this case, we'll select Error Event ID 10. Double-click. Now you'll see that we get more detailed information, including the fact that there were errors nested within this error. We can simply hit the back arrow right here to go back. Now, select Windows Logs and Security. We can select any event we want, so let's look at Log On. Once you've reviewed all of the information here, simply click the X, go back to the area that was just highlighted, right-click it, and select Save Selected Events. It will open up this window, where we have to select where we want it to be saved. It wants us to type in a specific user path as the file name. In this case, c:/users/sysadmin/event.evtx. Now click Save. It will ask us about display information, but in this case we don't need to do anything with it, so we can just click OK. Now we go to File Explorer, go to C, Users, Sysadmin, and double-click on Event. You'll notice that it opens up the event viewer again, and it gives us more detailed information. We can now close everything that we have just opened. Now, let's go to the System Configuration Utility, or msconfig. To do that, click on the Start menu, and type in msconfig. Here you can see that this lets us change basic information about how the system behaves, such as startup, shutdown, and any services. Click on Boot. Make sure that the Safe Boot option is checked and that the radial button named Minimal is also selected. Then click OK. Go back to the Windows menu, click the arrow next to Shutdown, and select Restart. Now that the system has started back up again, click on sysadmin, log in with the same password, you'll notice that there is no background and it says safe mode. You'll also notice that a window automatically opens instructing you more about what safe mode is. In safe mode, only the most essential files and drivers necessary to run Windows are allowed to work. This can be helpful if, for example, you have a driver conflict that is making use of the system regularly nearly impossible. By starting it in safe mode, you can go to the device manager and uninstall or update that specific driver without worrying about it having a similar deleterious effect. Now, we can close it, click on the Start menu, type in c:/windows/ntbtlog.txt. ntbtlog stands for ntbootlog. NT is the name of the system kernel that all versions of Windows after Windows 98 are built off of. Now, we can hit the Enter key. As you can see, this shows you in real time what drivers and other information was loaded as the system was booting up. Here, we select File, Save As, type c:/users/sysadmin/safeboot.txt. Now, click Save. Now that we've done that, close the Notepad application, go to the Start menu, and type in msconfig once again. Now, go to the Boot tab, and uncheck the box that says Safe Boot. If you do not do this, then the system will continue booting into Safe Boot even after you have shut it down. So, click OK. Now, go to Start, the arrow next to Shutdown, and click Restart. Log in as normal using the same password. Once you're in, go to the Start menu, type in c:/windows ntbtlog, click, and there we have it. Go back to the Start menu and go to C users sysadmin safeboot.txt and hit Enter. As you can see, we now have both open at the same time. If we arrange these side by side, now that you've put these side by side, you can look to see if there are any extra drivers that were loaded in the normal boot as compared to the safe boot. This might be a clue as to where to look if there are issues with startup. Once finished, close both windows. Now, go back to the Start menu, type in cmd, this is short for command prompt, right-click, and select Run as Administrator. Now type sfc /scan now and hit Enter. Now that it's complete, it should report that there were no integrity violations. Now you can close the command prompt and navigate to the Windows 10 machine. Click or hit the spacebar and enter in the same password. Now go to the Start menu, or in this case, the magnifying glass. Type in command prompt. However, you can also just type in CMD and you'll get the same result. Right-click and select Run as Administrator. Select Yes. Now type in DISM/online space /cleanup-image space /check health. Now hit enter. The check health switch will scan the local image for any corruption and will detect if there are any issues, such as with boot up, but it will not run any repair operations even if it finds them. Now type in DISM space /online /cleanup -image space /scan health. Now hit enter. This is a more advanced scan, but shouldn't take too long. It also doesn't correct any issues. Now that this is complete, enter DISM online cleanup image, and now restore health. Now hit enter. This will scan for any corruption and will actually attempt to repair the Windows 10 image. This will most likely take several minutes. Now that this is finished, simply close the command prompt window. Go back to the Windows 7 virtual machine, click the Start button, type problem steps recorder, and you will see record steps to reproduce a problem. Hit enter. Now, click Start Record. Now that it's recording, go to Firefox, select it, and attempt to enter something. In this case, let's go to Google. Once you get the no internet error, select Add Comment, and click and drag this area of the screen. Now just type in unable to connect to website. Click OK, and then stop record. Now, click on the Files folder and enter in PSR-test. Now you can minimize both of these tabs and open up Files. Double-click on PSR test, and double-click on the problem file. Select Ask Me Later. And if it opens up the default Microsoft landing page, just click the X on the tab. As you can see, it gives a detailed report on exactly what steps were taken as you navigated through Firefox and received the error. As you can see here, here's the comment that we made. Now, we can close both folders and end the reservation. That's it, and good luck!